What's up guys, welcome to The Far Side. My name is Migs. Time for some Invincible news. Season 2 will drop November 3rd, but they're only dropping the first 4 episodes, basically splitting the 8-episode season into 2 parts. They'll air them week to week, then they'll take a little break before airing the second set of episodes. Season 3 will premiere around this time next year, cutting down the gap between Season 2 and Season 3, which is of course pretty great news for Invincible fans. They haven't renewed the show for Season 4 yet, but there's a high chance they'll continue this until the bitter bloody end, just based on the popularity of the show right now. The Invincible universe is pretty intense, and if you think Season 1 was hitting pretty hard, well, we've seen nothing yet. I mean, it gets bonkers. There's also a bunch of big characters they'll be debuting for Season 2, so pretty excited about those as well. But let's not waste any more time here and let's get into the trailer.
Do you really think you can stop me?
So they announced a whole bunch of cast members coming into Season 2. They don't show the actual scenes, but you can hear the voiceovers of the actors as their names pop up. There isn't a ton of footage on there as well, though they do drop a couple of lines from the season. But one name in particular that stood out to me was Peter Cullen as Status. Optimus Prime himself, being an important character in the Invincible universe, is hella awesome. At the beginning of the season, it's all about dealing with the aftermath of Omni-Man's revelation and devastation at the end of Season 1, after just having left this massive carnage of innocents in the wake of his father's son talk with Invincible. At this point, pretty much everybody, including the Immortal who we see fight Invincible here, don't trust Mark enough to let him go out on his own, but he's still trying to prove to everyone he still wants to help in any way he can. And I think this whole showdown with the Immortal is tied into that as well. The next real villain that they'll be introducing is Angstrom Levy. It's like the really big villain for the next arc, but then there's also characters like Conquest and Anissa. And then eventually we might get a teaser for Thrag. I'm not expecting something big from Thrag, especially since he doesn't really become a big character until much later in the story. So it doesn't make sense to introduce him this early on. And I even think Omni-Man himself might appear towards the later half of the season. So at the beginning of the trailer, we see Mark's high school graduation ceremony and he's completely missing it. We see the blank seat, which is exactly the same as that seen in Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man 2. The name of the high school is Reginald VelJohnson, as in the actor Reginald VelJohnson, famous for his role in Family Matters and of course the Die Hard movies. And it's voiced by the real-life Reginald VelJohnson, even modeling the character after him in real life, which is pretty cool. His speech here is meant to be a parallel to what Mark is going through at the beginning of the season, taking the next step, trying to win everyone over, facing all of these challenges, including all these villains popping up, including very big ones, which they don't include in the trailer, which is a bummer. Although while he's giving the speech, they intercut with Invincible going on these missions, showcasing some of the bigger threats that he'll be facing. And of course, talking about the threats, by the end of Season 1, they tease a couple of the bad guys returning for Season 2, like the Mauler twins, for example. Also the Flaxons who are plotting to attack Earth again. The aliens using the time dilation device from another dimension. Omni-Man had traveled to their homeworld and obliterated it in the span of what looks like a couple months, maybe more, which is, gotta be honest, pretty awesome. But because of the time dilation effect, it seems like he was only gone for a short while, even though he came back with all that extra facial hair. Then of course there was Doc Seismic with a bunch of magma golems, Titan, who has taken over as the new crime boss of the city since they got rid of the old boss, Battle Beast of course attacking again in outer space. Then there's Cecil inspecting the upgraded reanimate drones, trying to make them more powerful as a defense against the Viltrumites when they eventually show up again. The earlier versions had potential against Omni-Man, although at that point they were little more than a nuisance. And actually, Cecil's plan is pretty sound. The Viltrumites will return, especially the pretty powerful ones like Conquest and Anissa, so having some sort of deterrent is really practical. So we also get a scene of Invincible facing off against the Immortal, who basically wants him locked up and trained before he can go out and be a superhero. As I said, he does have that trust issue with him after the last season. The Immortal is pretty cool. Like, no matter what happens to him, he eventually comes back. Like, he died died twice in the first season and now he's back. He is voiced by Ross Marquand, who was in the Walking Dead series. In fact, there's a lot of Walking Dead actors in the Invincible series because of Robert Kirkman, who wrote Invincible, who also co-created The Walking Dead. Marquand also took over as Red Skull in the MCU. He's also the voice of Ultron in the What If series. Ultron is supposed to be coming back during the Armor Wars movie. Also, we get a peek of Cecil, who's voiced by Walton Goggins, about letting Invincible go on missions again for the Global Defense Agency, but kind of putting him on a short leash since the events of season 1 just happened when he's talking about it. Then we see Invincible fighting the Mauler twins again. They are supposed to be working with Angstrom Levy, helping him construct his multiversal device. This, of course, is Corey Payton as Black Samson. Then we get a montage of characters returning from season 1, like pretty much everybody from season 1 is coming back. In the last scene of the trailer, we have a huge reveal. We see Thetis, voiced by Optimus Prime himself, Peter Cullen. Thetis, of course, is a huge character in the history of the Invincible universe. He's one of the OG Viltrumites that go back to the original war that cleansed their people, meant to remove all weaknesses from their bloodline. As you know, Viltrumites have a very unique physiology and they get stronger as they get older. So basically, they can live forever. And as you can see, he's pretty old, so that would give you at least a sense of his power level. But what wound up happening is that when their race started their internal civil war to make themselves stronger, they started conquering the rest of the universe. Eventually, Thetis saw this as a great evil, so he saw their people as evil and rebelled against them. In the aftermath of the Viltrumites' conquest of the known universe, he became the first rebel against their people. Thetis was actually a founding member of the coalition of planets to defend the universe against the Viltrumites. During episode 8 of season 1, Alan the Alien explains to Invincible what the coalition of planets is, which is basically a league formed against the Viltrumite invasion and, to stop them from conquering the entire universe. They also briefly mentioned the Scourge virus during the events of season 1 when Omni-Man was talking about the history of their race. The Scourge virus killed off most of their race. Some of them survived, but a very few number, which is why they changed how they conquer planets. Basically, they'd send one to a planet where he would create a child, and that child would be half Viltrumite, and then they would use the child to take over the planet, which is the original intention for Mark, half Viltrumite and half human. But before, when there were a ton of Viltrumites, they would basically send in a conquering force, which is, the old-fashioned way. And Thetis ended up giving his DNA to make the Scourge virus against the Viltrumite people, so he's tied into the mass genocide of their people as well. But they do tease Omni-Man coming back during the events of season 2, in which he says you should have died at birth. Omni-Man's still trying to keep up the pretense that he doesn't care about his human family, which is contrary to what happens towards the end of season 1. So Invincible will reunite with him in some way, probably maybe in another planet. One of the big things in the aftermath of season 1 is that Omni-Man refused to kill the Mark and left the planet. But because Thrag ordered him to take over Earth, he had to go find another planet to take over as a kind of replacement. So he just went and did the exact same thing and had another child on a different planet, with the Mantis-looking aliens. So basically, Mark winds up getting a half-brother from a different race of aliens. And even though the series in general follows Mark Grayson, Omni-Man continues to be a very important character throughout the entire run of the comics. And because Thetis was around during the original Viltrumite War and he's so long-lived, he kind of becomes this big source of information for both of them. And there's a lot of secrets about the history of their people, a lot of intrigue that I'm sure they'll dive into as well. I don't want to get into many spoilers for this video, but all the comics are out there right now. If you want to check out the entire run, it's been done a long time ago. You can definitely do that right now. They didn't say the events of the series in general, like season 2 and beyond, will be different from the comics, but it's pretty close to the comic book story as we're told. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty excited about this season. If you guys spotted any other Easter eggs or references in the trailer that I didn't cover, do let me know down in the comment section. Hopefully we get some of the trailers for other shows like Loki season 2, which is long overdue. I'll do my best to do other videos on those. Planning to do one for Secret Invasion as well. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos. I'll see you on the next one.